Hey, this is JC and welcome to Small Brick City. In this video, I'm going to share the different building techniques I used to create this mountain hideout MOC. If you haven't watched the original video where I gave a full review of this mountain hideout and the 4 secret hiding places for some very special items, do check out the link in the card above or in the description below. In this video, I'm going to show you how I built this particular MOC, the different techniques I used to create this rocky base, the building itself, as well as the roof. So if you're interested in learning how to build such a MOC so that you can apply it for your own builds, carry on watching. So we can break out the mountain hideout MOC into 3 main parts: the roof, the building itself or the walls, and the base. In this case, this is the rocky base on the dirt road. Now, the way I went about building this was to determine the size of the roof first. This was for several reasons. One was because of the parts that I had. I only had a certain number of parts, and also in terms of the dimensions that they were in. I had different parts, some in 3 stud lengths or 4 stud lengths, I think, and some in 2 studs lengths, and also had some 1 stud bricks as well. However, I needed to make sure that I could create a sloped roof within a certain area size. So you are limited to the bricks that you have, and of course the base plate that you use. So the 2 considerations: the size of the base plate and the size of the roof. So obviously the first thing I did was to determine how big a MOC I wanted to build. So I knew I wanted to build a small one, and one reason was it is because of the roof as well. So I decided on a 16 stud by 16 stud base plate, which is what I have over here. After I determined that, then I played around with the roof parts to create the size of the roof I wanted. Now, I knew I wanted a sloped roof like this, and also I wanted different colored bricks to create this patchwork like makeshift roof. And the way I built the roof, as you can see, I staggered the parts. Basically, just offset. I won't even call it an offset. I'm placing each slope piece directly on the studs of the preceding one, starting out and moving in to the top. And I ensured that I always overlapped the joints. So if this was a 3 and a 4 stud wide slope piece, then I would make sure that the piece above, or the slope above, would overlap that joint, so on and so forth. So I actually built this without any plates for reinforcement. That was just to get the structure out. Once I kind of got the size out in terms of the length and the width, more importantly the width, I added these bricks underneath to hold it in place on both sides. Once I determined this was the size I wanted, then I plated it on all 4 sides underneath. And these long plates are the plates that would attach to the top of the walls of the build, which had the jumper plates. So this is a typical technique for modular style buildings where you place a roof onto a top of the build, and there'll be jumper plates and tiles on the top edge of the roof, and they would bite and connect to the plates right here. So that's exactly how it worked, and that's how I determined the size. So I started with the base plate, and then I used the roof to determine how big the build would be. So once I got the size of the roof, I knew what the size of the build would be in terms of the walls, how it fit into here. I should mention, when I created this, I did want an overhang. So I did build it or design it such that there would be a 1 stud overhang on either side. I think having an overhang just makes it look better, but that's entirely up to you. You can make it perfectly fitting the roof, but in my case, I do like to have a little bit of overhang because it gives a bit of dimension. It's a bit realistic as well, because if you think of rainwater, you want it to hit and slide off the roof and not hit the walls of the building. So that's how I determined the size of the area of this build. Based on this build, I could then figure out what the base plate's configuration was in order to create this build. And once I got that size, I knew it could fit onto the base plate, of course, but then because I wanted to build a rocky base, and I'll show you how to build this rocky base in just a bit, but then I laid out this rocky base to fit this roof. So in a way, I'm working in parts from top down to get the size. But once I figure out what the sizes were, I built the rocky base, which then allowed me to mount these plates you see here onto the base. That's why there are these 2x4 bricks in the middle here. That's really just for support for the center. So these plates were built onto this rocky base. And then I started building the walls of the building upwards to complete the build. And once I did that, it was a matter of finishing the roof and putting everything together. And only then did I do all the detailing, like this vegetation and all these small rocks and water tank and such. So let's, we've talked about the roof, so that's pretty straightforward, right? I'll just jump into the finishing. This can just be simply tiled. If you have roof pieces which are triangular roof pieces, you can use that. I didn't have that. So I basically, to match the patchwork of this roof, I just put a bunch of random 1x2 and 1x1 tiles and 2x2 tiles in different colors and leaving some studs deliberately exposed to create that bit of a dilapidated look. And that of course is the chimney using a 2x2 plate and 4 round bricks covered with 2 1x2 grills. So very simple but very effective. So that's the roof. Let's jump into this rocky base. This base is something that a lot of people liked, and I'm going to just run through how I create this rocky base. And you know, any rock structure, whether it's a cliff face, a slope, or a base foundation for a building, it's basically the same technique. You're just scaling it up. So I'm just going to talk about the very basics, and I'll show you how to do a small build, and then you can naturally expand it on your own and experiment to create it bigger. So regardless how big your eventual mountain or hill is going to be, it all starts off with the same couple of bricks and you're basically multiplying. So don't let the scale of a mountain scare you off. What you need to be sure of is the techniques and have the parts on hand that allows you to create such a rocky surface. So what we're gonna do now is to show you different brick elements and parts that you need to create such a rocky surface. You need random parts. I won't call them random, but you need a bunch of different parts. And I call it random because I don't have a fixed number. I just use what I have, but I make sure I have a selection of the different bricks. Let me just zoom in a bit so you get a better look. So I've collected these parts from various sets, and also I've bought them off a Pick a Brick wall as well as on Bricklink when I see them available. These are modified bricks, and you can see that it's got a nice wedge and curved surface. There's actually a left and right hand side. As you can see, these are mirror images of each other, and I feel that they form very nice bases for walls. You of course have these straight sloped bricks. This is a 1x4. You can get a, or this is a 2x4, I'm sorry. You can also get a 2x3, so it's a longer brick there. You can also get these 1x2s, and that's a 1x3. So basically these are all sloped bricks in different sizes, and you want a variety of different sizes to create that irregular pattern that is distinctive for a natural rock formation. Another brick is what I call this corner brick. It is a modified brick. It's basically like a regular 2x2 brick but with a corner cut inside like that. And this makes for a nice rocky surface. I like to put it in corners as well. This is a taller corner piece, which is about 4 studs high, and it is a corner piece just due to the angle it is. So it's nice to place at a corner of a brick wall or a slope just to give it some definition and to define that as the corner. These are basically the same bricks that I've already shown you. One valuable addition you need, especially for finishing any rocky surface, is this cheese wedge piece. And you generally need them in dark gray. Now you could build your cliff or rock in light gray or dark gray, is up to you. I prefer a darker tone, or if I were to do a two-tone rock wall, I would always start off with the base in a dark color, and as it goes up it can become light gray, more like it's like exposure to sunlight, or it could be water, so it's more damp below. That's why it's always darker. So these cheese wedge pieces are important to cover the studs of these bricks just to give it a nice finish. If you want to create a moldy texture, or maybe there's some moss growing on the bricks, you can use this dark green cheese slope instead of a dark gray, and you could use a combination of colors basically. Finally, I recommend having a whole bunch of these 1x1 studs, and this is great just to add texturing to the ground around the rocky surface or the rock wall. So these are the kind of the bricks that you want to have in your collection standing by when you put something like this together. So let's build a simple rock wall. Okay, let's call it a rock wall from here to here. So I've not planned this, so I've no idea what I'm going to do it. So let's start off just with the corner. Now I mentioned this is a corner piece, so let's just start off with one corner here, just like that. So the straight edge faces in and the slanted corners or edges face out. So now all I'm going to do is randomly add pieces. Let's add this piece here. I'll add this piece, and maybe a longer piece. Well, maybe just to break this up, let's switch this around. Let's do that, and add one corner piece here. All right, and if I'm thinking about doing it two sides, I could easily add that, and that. And why not, let's just add this here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a double-sided brick wall. So think of this as a little ridge, okay? So you can see what I've done here. It's completely random. I just placed the slope bricks in no particular order, but I did try to create different irregular jutting out surfaces. So even something like this to me might be a bit boring. So why don't we take this piece out? Let's get a brick separator here. And of course, this is perfectly fine, but if I'm just being, I'm just nitpicking here. So I would change things up. I would add this here. I'll add this here, and I add this. And as you can see, that looks now better. It's even more irregular. So that's great. Why don't we just add another layer, because I still have some pieces. So let's do this here. And to fill up this, let's do that. Let's go the other way for this, and let's put this in the complete opposite direction. And let's add this up here. And again, this is simply because I do have bricks to work with, so that's why I'm just randomly putting things. And I can put this here, and let's say one final piece just to break things up. Okay. So now you can see this looks more like a small mountain. And as you can see, I was just putting things up. So you do the same. So the key is really to have these random bricks on hand. And if you don't have the bricks, you of course can use a digital designer, and then you have endless opportunities to play around to create a rock surface, and then you can determine what different rocks you need. But by and large, I don't think there's a real rule of what you need in order to achieve it. You just build upwards based on what you want to do. And if you're building a bigger mountain or bigger surface, you just basically expand that. So let me continue finishing this. So what I want to do is now to cover all these surfaces. So I would put this here. Maybe I'll put a bit of a moss surface here and here. Over here, I'll place one more brick. I like to do 90-degree turns like that. So it goes up sloping this way and goes up sloping this way. So it feels like it creates all these irregular angles, which is exactly what you want to do. So again, I'm just using these different parts to create these slopes. And notice how I'm covering the studs. So it's all deliberate because I want to create that rock feel. So I don't want any studs exposed. So I can't do anything about this simply because there's a natural curve. So these studs have to be left exposed because it's not possible to fit another brick in. Now I've got some slopes left over, and that's where you want to ensure you cover the studs, and you can then add them to the ground around. So this now feels like it's building up towards the rock surface. And let's just put a moss covered one here. No reason why moss can't be on the ground. So in this way, you can see it now. It feels more like a rock wall. Everything is building up. Remember these 1x1 pieces or studs? Well, these plates are used just to be placed in random positions, and this is just to create the look of rocks or loose rocks that have fallen down from the mountain maybe. And this creates a nice random feel, covers the base plate quite a bit, so you only have bits of dirt in this case showing through, and the rest is rocks or moss in this case. And I've got one more piece over here, white. Well, I can even place it onto a plate, so I can do that. No one says I can't. So there you have, I grabbed a whole bunch of random rocks. I only have this left over, and I've managed to fill this 4x8 plate completely rock to create this small rock formation. So now, if I were to expand this to a base plate of 32x32, I would use the exact same technique. I would start from the base surface first, and then I'll slowly build up. You can build up to one surface of a rock wall, or you can build up together to form like a pyramid or a mountain. You can see I did the rock work around the area surface of the house that I built. So I did exactly the same thing as I showed in the example, but I just did a perimeter, as you can see. I did have this feature. This is my little hiding space, which you'd see if you check out the original video for the mountain hideout, but that's not important in this discussion. So once I built this rock foundation, as I mentioned earlier, I placed the plate on top, and then I started building this wall. So let's talk about this build itself. It's very straightforward, nothing really much to say. I'll just remove it for now. I built it like you build any Lego house. So there would be a door, windows. You can easily figure this out. The only thing I'll mention is when you build, you always want to layer over the joints to have a very secure build. And one thing I did was to add in these masonry bricks, and this just gives nice texture. There was no planning. I basically just added them in randomly, and I feel that's the best way. Just come up with a random placement, and if you find they're too close together or too sparse, just change them out as you build. One thing I knew I wanted to add were these vegetation, so I actually placed these modified bricks in after I actually built. Well, I kind of did it both at the same time. The times I knew I wanted to place modified bricks, I'll just put them in, and as I built up the model, I realized, well, there should be another brick here for vegetation, so I break it open and put that modified brick in. So that's pretty straightforward. It's just a bit of experimentation and play. And finally, when you get to the top, you just want to tile up the top for your roof. For the interior, I've talked about interiors before, so I won't talk about it now. I've dedicated videos on how to detail the interior of MOCs. So check out the link in the card above for the playlist or in the description, and you check out those videos for my approach on detailing a build. One thing I'll just talk about is the money that I had stashed under the floorboards. This is really just an illusion, because remember, this is just built on a plate. So there's a base plate, and notice there are tiles which act as the floorboard. So it's actually raised up by one surface. That gives me space to place the money tiles on top of this base plate. So really, just take it as another tile. It's just a different color. But because it's money and just the way it's arranged underneath the mattress, it creates that illusion of a whole stack of money hidden underneath the floorboards. Of course, this is fueled by our imagination and what we've seen in movies, how people hide money underneath their mattresses and in holes in buildings. The mattress itself, again, I'll just highlight, very straightforward. It's just a plate with tiles, but what really makes this, in my opinion, is that 2x2 plate with a gray triangular tile, which looks like the folded blanket. And when you place it together over the money, that really sells this hiding space that you have hidden money underneath. So that's basically the build, and that is the roof, which we talked about, and that's it. I hope you enjoyed this look at how to build my mountain hideout, and also some basic rock technique that you can apply to your own MOCs. If you have any questions or suggestions, please leave it in the comments below. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't, please subscribe to the channel for more interesting and useful how-to LEGO videos. Thanks for watching. Talk to you soon.